Welcome to Let's Go Dutch. I'm Veronica Lewis, and today we're trekking to Zeeland and a town that has been smack dab in the middle of Dutch history, Middelburg.
I'm gonna travel the world. I'm gonna go where the Dutch have been, and I'm gonna share it with you, my friends. Let's go Dutch. Let's go Dutch. Let's go Dutch.
We'll visit the medieval gem of Zeeland, Middelburg, with its abbey full of history and streets full of stories.
So put on your clogs and let's go Dutch.
Zeeland, one of the 12 provinces of Nederland, is on the southwestern coast, bordering on Flemish Belgium. Meaning sea land, this province was quite literally Zeeland. Now filled in thanks to Dutch land reclamation, the various islands of Zeeland were like little fingers jutting out into the North Sea. The provincial capital is Middelburg. Through the ages, Middelburg suffered its share of beatings. The Vikings, the Spanish overlords, and worst of all, the Tweede Wereldoorlog, World War II. While some cities chose to rebuild modern, Middelburg rebuilt the city as it was.
Middelburg received its town charter in 1217. We talk a lot about town charters, but what are they? These go back to feudal times when lands were controlled by counts, dukes, and even the bishops of Utrecht. They granted city rights, typically as a way of raising funds, since they weren't granted for nothing. A charter gave a town the right to collect tolls, hold a market, build a wayhouse, and collect taxes on goods coming in. A market is still held on Thursdays and Saturdays. It's held on the markt, dominated by the Stadhuis.
This is quite a large markt. In the Middle Ages, a church stood opposite the Stadhuis. It was the Westmonsterkerk and was demolished in 1575.
Willem, did you say Monsterkerk?
Why, yes, I did. Westmonsterkerk.
They had monsters here in Middelburg?
Well, yeah, they had Viking raids, Spanish siege, Nazi bombardment. So, yeah, they had monsters in Middelburg. Now, if we look in the Woordenboek, that's a Dutch dictionary, we'll find, aside from the beastly meaning, monster means example or specimen. But it also gives great as a meaning. So in this case, Monsterkerk means big church. But if we dig back a little further, we'll find a meaning that's even more fitting. Monastery church.
We'll be talking about the Middelburg Abbey. But for now, the Stadhuis stands before us.
The Stadhuis was built by the Flemish Keldermans family between 1452 and 1520. They hailed from Mechelen in Flanders, the Dutch-speaking part of Belgium. The style is known as Brabant Gothic, and it closely resembles the Flemish Stadhuizen in Ghent, Bruges, and Leuven. The statues on the facade are counts and countesses of Zeeland. The first is Dirk V, He was just a little older than 5 when he became Count of Holland. Of the 25 statues, there are 3 Dirks and 4 counts named Floris. There are also 4 Willems. The last statue is Charles V. On the top of the tower, there's a statue of Queen Wilhelmina holding Princess Juliana. She was queen from 1890 until 1948, when she abdicated and Juliana became queen. The little staircase with the Middelburg Stadswappen led to the Stadhuis, while the doorway to the left went into the Vleeshal, the old meat market. Above the Vleeshal was the Lachenhal, the cloth hall. The bell tower is known as Malabetje.
Hold on, I have something to mention about that. The Dutch have a penchant for giving nicknames to their towers. The main bell tower by the Abbey is Lange Jan. That means Long John, a very popular name. The bell tower on the Stadhuis is Malabetje, which means
Silly little Beth.
the reason? Her clock lags behind the clock on Lange Jan.
The Dutch are very punctual.
And speaking of punctual, we have an appointment to see the inside of the Stadhuis.
We are here in Middelburg with our guide, Piet, who is going to tell us about the Stadhuis.
This was the oldest city hall, and it is built in the second half of the 15th century. So it is a very beautiful building. So it is nowadays, it is a little bit too small for being a city hall, but it's very beautiful, and now it will be used by the Roosevelt Academy, which is a part of the University of Utrecht. And during the Second World War, we had very much damage here in this town and also in this city hall. But now it's restored so very beautiful. You can see the vaults with the oak wood, so it looks if it is built in the Middle Ages, but it is no older than 80 years. But all the furniture here it is all old. So you come in here. Well, this is the wedding room. So the bride and the groom are sitting there, and the official is standing there behind the table, and all the other people are sitting here in the
The witnesses.
So, yes. Well, in the past there was a relationship from Middelburg and the Japanese town of Nagasaki, and mostly each year they come to each other for having closer relations and for giving each other some presents. So, and that are the dolls from Japan, which are coming here and given by the Japanese officials. This room, this is the former cloth hall. So in the Middle Ages, Middelburg had been a great deal of trade in wool. The wool was coming from England and from Scotland, and here they have made all kinds of clothes, and the clothes you could sell or you can buy it here in this place.
Like many of the cities we visited in the Netherlands, Middelburg endured a Spanish siege during the 80 Years' War. The city was liberated by William of Orange in 1474 with the help of the Watergeuzen, the beggars of the sea. They were Dutch nobles who acted like pirates, and they were instrumental in liberating many towns under siege. Known as the father of the fatherland, William, the Prince of Oranje, was stadhouder of Holland, Zeeland, and Utrecht.
Willem of Orange, or Willem the Silent, as he's more known, lived somewhere around here on the Lange Delft. Now, it's a busy shopping street, so probably not silent enough for Willem.
He lived here with his fourth wife from 1575 to 1583. After he was assassinated in 1584, his wife, along with his daughters, moved into the abbey, where the Zeeland Museum is.
Our next stop.
The abbey was founded in 1127 by Flemish monks. Known as Norbertine monks, they came from the St. Michael's Abbey in Antwerp. Most of the buildings were rebuilt in the 16th century. In 1559, the Diocese of Middelburg was founded, but was disbanded in 1574 when William of Orange captured the city from the Spanish. There are 3 churches in the abbey complex: the Koorkerk, meaning choir church, and was originally built in 1300. The neo-kerk, dedicated to the patron saint of mariners, St. Nicholas, and the Wandelkerk, meaning walking church. The Wandelkerk is really just the passage between the other 2 churches.
We are here in the Zeeland Museum with our friend, our tour guide, Nico.
I would like to start with 2 pictures, 2 paintings. One drawing, one painting. And each of these paintings are telling us a story. And it's a very nice story. This is the story about a young girl in traditional clothing. You see this cap over here?
Yes,
And you see these little flaps hanging over her shoulder.
yes.
What that means that she isn't ready to marry yet. She is too young to marry. As soon as she is ready to marry, these flaps disappear. So the young man can see, okay, she's ready to marry, we can take a chance of that.
Will you tell me about the necklace?
Now the necklace, you have seen that is bloedkoraal.
Bloedkoraal.
You're wearing the same necklace
Bloedkoraal.
but it tells something about this girl if she is rich or not. She is wearing just one string of bloedkoraal. That means she is not that wealthy. You're wearing 4 strings. That means you're a bit more rich than her. The richest people, they were 5 of these strings of bloedkoraal.
Bloedkoraal.
So people could see at your necklace, at your bloedkoraal, if you were rich or if you were poor. This little girl over here, of course, she came from a very rich family. It's painted around the year 1600, and we can tell that she was rich because, heel simply said, she's wearing black. And black in those days was very difficult to make. So it was very, very expensive. So people who wore black, maybe a bit from that, they are showing that they were rich. You see this hairpin on the left side on her head?
Yes.
It means she is not married. More or less the same than a ring on our finger. So it means she is not married. So if there are young men who want to take a chance, well, they have to have the possibility to take a chance because She giving a signal.
Yes.
As soon as it moves to the right side of her head,
Yes, take
stay
it.
away. The tapestry, which is telling us the story of the 80-year war with the Spanish. The 80-year war started in 1568 and it took till 1648 to end. But there's a big difference in Zeeland compared with the rest of the Netherlands, because this war only lasted in Zeeland for 4 years. And in 4 years we had 5 battles, sea battles with the Spaniards, and we beaten them. 4 times, 5 times again, we've beaten the Spaniards. Because, of course, the Dutch people are well known for their sailors, for their seamanship.
Yes.
So they were better seamen, they were better sailors, and they knew the surroundings. The province of Zeeland was so proud of that, that in 1592 they said we have to have tapestries of these battles. Maybe we can go to that one for more details.
Okay.
Of course you can see it in the flags. This is Spanish. And of course these are the Dutch, because you have orange, we have blue, and we have white. You can see also these big guns over here.
Uh-huh.
Well, these guns make a lot of noise, a lot of smoke, but they didn't do much damage in those days. They tried to destroy the sails and the mast, because then the ship would lie still and they could be entered and they could be captured.
Oh.
They want to capture the ship because
Yes.
then they could use the ship for their own uses. And you can see the picture of the island of Walcheren, where we are now. And over there, the big tower, that's,
Yes.
that's Middelburg. And Middelburg was still owned by the Spanish,
Yes.
and the rest was it was liberated by the watergeuzen, the Dutch sailors, the Dutch soldiers. Over there to the left, you see Flushing.
Uh-huh.
And Flushing was the first liberated town in the Netherlands from the Spaniards in 1572. Over there you can see a fortress, was also occupied by the Spanish. And over there you can see some ships burning.
Uh-huh.
Those ships were so-called burners. That were very old ships, and they were stuffed with all kinds of goods which could burn easily. And then they were sailing straight into the enemy. And as soon as they approached the enemy, everything was lit. The steering man, the officers sprung overboard, he swam away, and the ship was burning and went to the enemy and burnt the enemy down. So that was a very much used tactic in those days. This tells us the story of the 80-year-old war. Here on the throne, you see the Duke of Alva. He was representing the King of Spain, Floris II. And of course, he was a Catholic, because the 80-year-old war was not a war for having power, it was also a war of religion. It was the war from the Catholics against the Protestants. And Spain was, of course, Catholic.
Yes.
You see here a bishop, all dressed in red, who is whispering something in his ear.
Oh.
I think he will say you have to kill all the Protestants. I think so.
Yeah.
You see here those beautiful ladies who are chained, represent the provinces of the Netherlands. And they were chained to the King of Spain. This is the parliament, people from the parliament, and they were all silent because they can't speak out. They were all silent because they were afraid for the Duke of Alva. At the background, you see some torturing going on.
Yes.
These were Protestant people who were tortured, and as soon as they were ready with torture, they were hanged or burned over here on the next place. This is the most famous admiral the Netherlands have ever had. It's Michiel de Ruyter, coming from Vlissingen. So Michiel was approximately 12 years old and he went to sea. He was a very good sailor. Within 10 years he had his own ship and he was sailing across the seas of the world to trade in spices. He died in a battle on the Mediterranean, age 70. He was only with 12 ships against a French fleet of approximately 80 ships.
Oh, wow.
So he got a cannonball going through his leg.
Oh.
He lived for a week, but he died. So they took him back to Amsterdam, and now he is buried in Amsterdam in the Nieuwe Kerk.
The Abdij Toren, the Lange Jan, which means the Abbey Tower Long John, is part of the Abbey complex. The original tower was built in the 14th century. Fires plagued the tower, with the final death knell being the Nazi bombardment of 1940. 1955 was the year the restored tower once again graced the Middelburg skyline.
Imagine it's 1765 and a horse and carriage just entered this arched courtyard. This is the Van de Pera house, built for Adriaan van de Pera and his wife. He was a regent of Zeeland. Later on, this mansion was used as a provincial court. Okay, gonna jump back on my iron horse and keep exploring.
This port, or gate, now leads to the city archives. But in 1620, when it was built, it led to the brouwerij, the Drietonekens, a brewery. You could see beer barrels up on top of the gate. The brewery was founded in 1589 and was in business until 1758. 169 years, not a bad run.
In medieval times, the town was defended by both archers and riflemen. They had to practice, right? Their guild hall and practice range is called a doelen, and there are two I want to show you.
Now a hotel. This is the St. Joris Doelen, originally built in 1582. This was the Archers Guild.
The St. Joris Doelen was badly damaged during World War II. It was rebuilt in the original 1582 style. You can see the year marking mixed in with the wall anchors. And you'll notice too the wall anchors in the shape of crossbows flanking the upper pair of windows. Between them is the wapen of the St. Joris Guild. And speaking of St. Joris, up on top of the gable is Joris himself, slaying the dragon. Now housing a restaurant and meeting space, this is the Cloveniers-Doelen. From 1611, this is where the Cloveniers, or rifle militia, held court. Like the St. Joris Doelen, the wapens on the facade are that of Zeeland and Middelburg. After the militia was disbanded around 1787, the VOC took over the building. That didn't last long, as the French invaded about 10 years later. It may have been a short time, but the VOC was very active in Middelburg during the Golden Age. In fact, Middelburg was the second most important chamber of the VOC after Amsterdam. The Dutch Admiraliteit had their fleet in nearby Vlissingen.
The cities, designated VOC cities, had what was called a Kamer or chamber. Each city had a certain number of directors. Middelburg prospered during the Golden Age, but also in the centuries earlier due to trade with their neighbor, Flanders.
Like many cities in the Netherlands, Middelburg was a seafaring town, and you can't escape that vibe. The salty air coming off the North Sea brings with it stories of the past and the people that walk these cobblestone streets.
This looks like an old house with a story to tell. The wapens on the facade are of Zeeland and Middelburg. The name, Te Vliegende Hert, was a VOC ship from 1735. The name means the flying deer, but unfortunately the ship hit a proverbial deer and sank off the coast of Vlissingen.
Dit is the Arabier. No, really, it says so. That means this is the Arabian. The design no doubt reflects the Far East trade of days gone by. This at one point was a wine warehouse and vinegar factory. Kaupersport. Kauper means cooper. These were the guys that made barrels, also known as the Tupperware of the Middle Ages. This peaceful, hidden courtyard is called the Kaupersport. Laid out in 1642, this was a meeting spot for the Kaupers. Willem, you're a cat lover and a cat in a past life. Why don't you tell us about Jacob cats? Nay, Willem, in English. I told you he was a cat in a past life.
There's something about cats, I must say. And I don't mean the furry ones in any way. Nay, I'm talking about a writer from Middelburg by the name of Jacob Cats, or so I've heard. Jacob was a writer, a lawyer, and even a town clerk in Middelburg, the town where he lived and worked. Jacob was a very popular writer and known for his rhyming. Want to hear some of his rhymes? Al draagt de aap een gouden ring, zo is het toch geen lelijk ding. Even if the monkey wears a golden ring, so is it still an ugly thing. De nood die doet een ouder heeft draven, ook oversloten en overgraven. Necessity Makes even an old woman jump across ditches and graves. This doesn't rhyme much in English. Zijn tong wel te kunnen dwingen is better than heel mooi te zingen. To be able to control your tongue is better than being able to sing beautifully. It's a good thing he said these in Dutch. Okay, here's two more. Kinderen zijn hinderen. Children are a nuisance. Hey, I didn't write it. He did. Als is de logge nacht zo snel de waarheid achterhaalt, haar wel. That means no matter how fast the lie is, the truth will catch up with it.
In the Low Countries, when you see a structure like this, you know something fishy is going on. Indeed, because they were selling fish here as far back as 1559. This was the fish market. The fish market. They are categorized by covered galleries with columns, and there would have been tables here.
You know, there's another pavilion like this over on the Dam.
Oh, let's go have a look.
Sure.
Oh, you're right. Is this also a Fistmarkt?
Nay, this is the graanbeurs, the grain or corn exchange. It was originally founded in 1526, but this is an 1846 renovation.
Wow.
It does resemble a fistbank.
Looks a little bit corny here, sitting all alone in the middle of a parking lot.
Yeah, while this wasn't the original location, this area changed quite a bit over time. But it was the Second World War that turned it into a parking lot. May 17th, 1940 to be exact.
Eric, if I were to ask you what day April 6, 1722 fell on, what would you say?
Well, I would naturally have to say Sunday. Would you like to know why?
I'd love to know why.
It's because in 1659, a son was born here in Middelburg. His name was Jacob Roggeveen. Amongst other things, Jacob was a Dutch explorer, and on Easter Sunday of 1722, he spotted an island, which he named Easter Island.
And speaking of Roggeveen and Easter Island, it was the Dutch explorers who first discovered Australia and Tasmania.
That's right. Both Willem Janszoon and Abel Tasman both sailed for the VOC. Roggeveen was on a VOC Council of Justice in Batavia and later sailed to the VOC.
Okay, our ship's getting ready to sail. More exploring to do.
One more thing about Roggeveen. You know the Dutch are amongst the tallest in the world, right? Well, if you didn't, they are. Well, when Roggeveen was passing Easter Island and he saw the giant heads of the Moai, he turned to his crew and he said, "Are we back in Holland? They as tall as us."
Oh, I almost forgot. We gave you a little tidbit about Malabetje, the clock tower in the Stadhuis. Well, we have a little tidbit about Lange Jan, too, and a local legend at that.
The local Middelburgers are known as Monnablisses. Mon means moon. Monnablisses means moon extinguishers. Back in the days when fires were put out one bucket at a time, a local drunk saw the light of the moon on the tower and thought it was on fire. He alerted the town and they leapt into action. It was only when the moon was obscured by clouds that they realized it's not on fire at all. Monobluses.
Middelburg is a city that's, well, in the middle of it all. The weathered facades release their stories if you look hard enough. Middelburg has withstood wars and even a devastating flood in 1953 in which 865 people in Zeeland alone lost their lives. Although scarred, the past has hardly been washed away. Well, that's all the time we have. I hope you've enjoyed our trek through this historic city. I'm Veronica Lewis. Join us again next time on Let's Go Dutch as we explore more of Nederland and beyond. Tot ziens!